John was removing a wrecked car from an accident scene. After he loaded it onto a flatbed truck, he headed to a yard that stores cars before insurance companies have an opportunity to assess them.
Command, was I not supposed to put diesel in my car?
The night before, John had been kept up all night long caring for his young son who hadn't been feeling well. While driving, John called his wife to ask about how their son was doing. At the same time, his wife was on her way to a doctor's office with their son. It was a bright, sunny day, the roads were dry, and traffic was moderate. Unfortunately, even in such ideal conditions, John's exhaustion got the best of him. He fell asleep behind the wheel, drove into oncoming lanes, and crashed head-on into a semi-truck. John experienced back pain, but the trucker wasn't injured. John was transported to the hospital to treat some minor superficial injuries. Oh bro, nice car you got.
Thanks, it's a Bruckle Bastion.
Bastion? That's also in a cool mobile game that I play. Bastion is a base of operations for everything.
What game do you mean?
The Raid Shadow Legends, bro. I play it all the time. Raid Shadow Legends is what happens if you crossed a blockbuster movie with a real AAA video game and then squeezed into a mobile phone. That's not all, dude. Let's talk champions. Raid's got nearly 700 of them, and recently they added a super cool new faction called the Sylvan Watchers. You've got forest elves, you've got scary-looking tree spirits, you've even got living rock monsters. The Sylvan Watchers basically have it all as a faction, so let's find out more about their history within the world of Teleria. Raid's prepared something special for you. It's time to vote on your favorite starter champion. Download Raid Shadow Legends from the links below, copy your in-game player ID, then go to championselect.plarium.com. Simply enter your player ID and then vote for your chosen champion. This vote runs from January 16th to February 10th, with all eligible entrants being in with the opportunity to win awesome in-game and real-life prizes, including epic and legendary champions, in-game items, and even Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. Once the vote ends on February 10th, one champion will be crowned the winner, and the prize winners will be selected via a draw. Don't worry if you're an existing Raid player, you can still get involved. Just head to championselect.plarium.com, where you can find a special promo code that everyone can use for a small in-game gift. But there's more. New players, use my link or scan the QR code right here and get a free starter pack with this cool in-game loot. Nicholas was preparing to transport a shipment of gas by rail. When he arrived at his locomotive, he made sure everything was ready before requesting permission to proceed. Meanwhile, Oliver was hauling a load of mixed goods with his semi-truck. His morning had started poorly when he got into an argument with his wife. Nicholas was cleared to leave the station for his trip of about 300 miles. Oliver was busy texting his wife while driving, and he didn't realize he was approaching a railroad crossing. At that time, Nicholas was approaching the same crossing and his engine was pulling lots of heavy cargo. He engaged the emergency brake, but it wasn't enough to stop him from colliding with Oliver's truck. Lisa was driving in the countryside outside of Furwood. So was Bill, driving his black H-Series containing heavy cargo. Lisa was late for an anniversary date with her husband, and she was letting him know she was on her way. Meanwhile, Michael was heading home from his first day at his new job. He was very excited and couldn't wait to tell his wife about it. Lisa and Bill were headed toward the same intersection. When Lisa ran a stop sign, Bill slammed on his brakes in an attempt to avoid an accident, but his vehicle was too heavy, and he T-boned Lisa's vehicle. The impact pushed her car into a third, which turned out to be Michael's. Michael was the only one able to call 911. After paramedics responded, they discovered Bill pinned against his dashboard. Lisa was diagnosed with a concussion and a fractured wrist. Alex was headed home from work on the highway at 11 p.m. Traffic was flowing smoothly. After a rough shift, Alex was feeling tired. Suddenly, he heard a report on the radio of a wrong-way driver on the highway. He reached down to turn up the radio volume so he could hear what was being said. When he looked back up at the road, a driver ahead of him aggressively merged to the right. Alex woke up with no memory of what had happened. He had smashed head-on into the wrong-way driver before being rear-ended by another driver who had no time to react. Alex survived the accident with minor injuries. Nicole, the driver who'd rear-ended Alex, suffered lacerations and a broken wrist. The wrong-way driver, later identified as Nicholas, did not survive. A police investigation revealed that Nicholas had been consuming alcohol shortly before the accident. Antonio had enjoyed a beautiful weekend at the Italian docks in a small but pleasant hotel. He was happy for a chance to relax after a difficult week. Then, on Sunday morning, the wind began gaining strength and rainfall became heavier and heavier. Antonio didn't want to drive home in the rain, so he decided to wait out the bad weather. He'd fallen asleep when, suddenly, an evacuation order awakened him. Floodwaters had begun to rise to dangerous levels. While he packed his things, water was already beginning to cover sections of nearby roads. When Antonio tried to leave in his car, he discovered that most people had already been evacuated on a bus. The winds were getting stronger. Suddenly, he realized a tree had blocked the road. The road was impassable, and he had nowhere else to go. When he turned around to look for another route, he didn't go far before more trees began to fall. Even rocks were falling on the road. The winds were incredibly strong, and the waters continued to rise as Antonio was trapped with no idea what to do. When the water finally reached his car, all traffic on the road came to a stop. Rescue personnel did their best to save anybody they could. After several hours, the winds began decreasing and the floodwaters began to recede. Antonio was fortunate and happy to be alive. Eric was removing wrecked vehicles from a highway one winter morning in the city of Valesco. He'd been enjoying his morning coffee when he received a call about a stalled vehicle. It was around 7 a.m., and traffic was starting to pick up. The stalled vehicle was located on a highway about 10 miles outside the city. Eric located the vehicle and took every appropriate safety measure. Meanwhile, Officer Dan Hill saw what was happening and activated his emergency lighting for increased safety. As Eric was finishing loading up the disabled vehicle, a truck driver lost control on the icy road and smashed into Eric's tow truck. 2 more vehicles that had been driving behind the semi-truck were also involved in the collision. When paramedics arrived, they began assessing the injuries of the people involved. Eric had been hit by the truck, but he managed to escape any serious injuries. The truck driver had shoulder pain and a few minor scrapes. The other 2 drivers received medical treatment at the scene for lacerations, and one of their passengers had a headache.